Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Sales Manager Academy podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the power of self-talk. Surprisingly, it's something if you've been taking a look at the training forms that you can grab right there in the description, that's exactly one of the things that it points to. Okay, but we're going to be talking about in two respects. Today we're just going to be talking about your sellers, your teams. Next episode, we'll be talking about what it means for you as the leader. Okay. But I'm sure you've seen it. Oftentimes, you see your people, you don't trust certain people to really bring it in to close it because you feel that they don't overcome those objections. You've told them multiple times, this is what you got to do. You face this is what you got to do. You tell them, right? You give them the script, but you're the one telling them, this is what you do, this is what you do. And they still don't grasp it. They still continue to do what they've been doing before. And I've said this before, right? One of the big things that we're looking at is we're breaking habits and creating new habits. We're having to change that loop that they're running on. And a lot of it is going to play on what they hear, right? And that automatic response that they're going to go to, the heuristics. But today we're going to be talking about the self talk portion because part of that habit is the conversations that they have going on about themselves, to themselves, about what they're capable of and what they're more importantly not capable of doing. And you could only do so much. I liken it to the idea of right the jumping bug in a jar. Right, if you grab a bug that jumps and you put them in a jar and you close the lid, and they're going to keep hitting that ceiling on that jar, okay, that top. And the moment you unscrew that top and you take it off, they will not be able to jump higher than that top. They will not jump out. Why? Because they've been conditioned to have that ceiling. No matter how high or how hard they try, that is the ceiling that they're capable of because that's what they've been conditioned to do. And part of what you're seeing with your sellers is not necessarily that that's what they've been conditioned to do, it's that they haven't been conditioned to do otherwise. Right? They've been in that enclosed environment where they couldn't see past that ceiling. And that's where you have to help them break those beliefs and recreate new ones. And part of that means you're going to have to break old habits, old beliefs that they hold certain. And it's going to take a little bit of time. It's not going to take a very long time. It's not going to take years. But it is going to take longer than a fucking conversation that you have with them over an hour lecture that you describe as your coaching session. Okay. And that's what we're going to talk about. So, you know the issue, you see the issue. They're not pitching, they're not closing, they're not overcoming those objections when they're talking to customers. And you point it out to them. You're like, hey, Joe, I see that, you could have pushed a little bit harder, or you try to jump in, but they can't continue the conversation, right? Or the client customer feels a little bit unease because there's no energy being bounced off between you and that seller, you and that rep. Okay. I know you guys understand what I'm talking about because you know the difference between you and a seller that is actively trying to close it, and you do that second person selling and you jump in, and it really creates that energy between you two, and the client, the customer actually understands and like, oh, okay, I get it now, right? Maybe because it was being talked or brought up in a different manner, and then you brought it up in a different way, saying the exact same thing essentially, but you're just bringing it up from a different perspective, a different angle, and that client customer understands it. It's like, that makes sense. Let's do it. But that conversation piece has to come from them. You can tell them that they're capable of doing whatever you think they're truly capable of doing. But unless they themselves can see themselves doing it, they will not accomplish it. Now, on the form, that's one of the most important aspects of it, which is them actually writing out what actions they will be taking. This is why old school pen to paper is still far superior in this type of training sessions than doing digitally. Okay? When you're doing it digitally, you're just fucking checking off a checklist. That's all you're doing. You're not actually truly getting anything out of it. You might be thinking, oh, this is going to be en masse. I'm going to get more out of this. No, if that was the case, we would have much smarter people because of AI right now. And what happens is that people are defaulting and not truly learning anything, and it's making things worse, right? It's the same thing for your sellers. It's the exact same reason why having everything done digitally at schools doesn't work, because they're not retaining it. They're literally shutting off that brain that has to think. And that's what doing the pen to paper is going to change. It's forcing them to think, and it's forcing them to think in a couple of different ways. One is going to be the self talk that they see, because they actually have to write out what plan they're going to do, what they're going to say, how they're going to say it, when they're going to say it. And from there, they're not just writing it out, they're also telling it to themselves, because you're going to ask them to go over that with you. So they're having to say it out loud. And the thing about writing things down that a lot of people don't understand is when you write it down, you have to actually visualize those actions. So you're actually doing a type of role play where you're living it. You're reliving a scenario. You're reliving, or you're living that particular scenario you're creating, that role play session. But it's far more realistic because they actually see themselves, right? Their mind's eye, whatever you want to call it. They see themselves doing it, and they're actually going through it. So now it becomes this, oh, I don't know if I can, to, okay, I've actually been doing it. I just got to say this. And it's going to change that aspect of themselves little by little, because they're going to go from, I don't believe I can do this, to, okay, I can do this. And remember, action always comes before the results and way before the motivation. The motivation is the last thing that comes in that equation for that loop. So once they start taking that action and they just see that they close a little bit more. Remember, we're not asking them to close every single opportunity, every single interaction that they have. What we're asking them is to close just a little bit more. Okay? 1, 2, 5, 10%, just a little bit more than they were closing before. And by doing that, right, if they can close one more opportunity out of every 10, so they're closing one out of every 10, they can bump that to 2 out of every 10. They've essentially have doubled their performance. Okay? And that's the way, as a leader, I want you to think about this. We're not asking them to drastically improve their performance, but that slight bump in performance will continue to get better. And it will go from being a slight bump to an exponential bump in their performance. But you have to start doing the coaching. You have to start doing that, because you will start changing their beliefs. They will start to actually believe in themselves. And you're giving them something that very few people get these days: mentorship, development. Somebody that actually believes they're capable of doing more and is pushing them to be more, to actually be the individual that they want to be. That is what we're after. That is the type of growth we want from our people. That is the type of leader that you are if you are watching this. You're looking for ways to be able to help your teams improve, but you're not getting the support. And I get it. A lot of organizations don't understand how to actually implement this and do this. Fuck. A lot of the organizations out there that are taking advice from consultative companies are doing it ass backwards, because they're not looking for growth that's sustainable. They're looking to get their market share, right? Their price, their stock price up. So they're looking at from the wrong lens. We're looking at it from the long term. We want this to be a viable business. We want this to be a viable organization for the long term. And that's where we're coming from. That's where I'm coming from. So you're helping your people change how they think, right? If you don't know what I'm talking about, pull up that form from the description. You're going to see exactly what I mean. Okay, it's a 15-minute framework. Grab it for yourself. Start learning it, start using it. Once they start going through that, now they are making themselves believe that they can actually do it. When they start to do that and they've written down those action plans, they will begin to actually push even further out to what they're capable of doing. Because all it takes is just a little taste of success from that new method. It's a small little pivot. Is going to drastically change their output. And that's what we're wanting to do. That's what you as a leader are looking for because you want them to perform better. Because just like I tell my salespeople in the past, I'm selfish because I want you to make money. I want you to make money by working less, right? When you're working, or it feels like you're working less, but you're performing more, you're performing better, you're making more money, guess what? I will also benefit from that. So it is in my best interest to make sure you're trained and developed, that you're actually hitting these numbers, because then you can do whatever you're wanting, whether it's travel, whether it's your hobbies, what it doesn't matter what you want that extra money for. But by you being able to do that, I can make sure I'm actually attaining the goals that I want to achieve. But I have to make sure you're taken care of and being able to get there because I, as a leader, believe in you. That's going to be our conversation for the next topic, okay? For the next episode. So keep that in mind. Guys, once they do that, they're going to start to see little bits of change in their performance. And that is what's going to lead to the change in the habit because the action always has to come before the motivation. We do things ass backwards. A lot of organizations do that where they believe that if I motivate, then they'll get better. No, that's no fucking different than you going to the gym, hiring, a fitness coach, and they are the ones that are actually doing the workouts, and all you're doing is fucking watching. What do you get out of that? Nothing. You just waste your money. You waste your time. That's exactly what happens when you're pushing on. I'm going to motivate them, or I'm going to, we're going to do a coaching session where I'm going to spend an hour going over what you need to do better. Where I, as a leader, am telling you what you need to do to become better, but I'm not giving you the opportunity to own anything. I'm not giving you the opportunity to actually see yourself making those changes and actually doing those actions. And you might say, well, we're going to do role playing sessions. You could do role playing sessions. Okay. There is nothing wrong with that, but you need to understand the limitations of doing actual role playing sessions. There's a time and place for them. Okay. But when it comes to quick, small pivots, you have to trust your people. Because if you've been observing, you know they're capable of doing it. They're just missing little things here and there. And it could be just a little bit extra push. It could be asking that additional question. It could be something as simple as asking the client or customer, why? Help me understand why. You would be surprised how many people are very timid about asking that one question. Well, help me understand why. This is based on what you're telling me, this is a much better experience. It's under budget or it's at budget, or right. Help me understand why. Because if it's a budget issue, I need to know. If you're telling me, right, I've told you guys, I've done, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of work in the AV and appliance spaces. And that's one of the questions that I had to ask those clients. Because if we were over budget, I needed to know. Because if you're telling me this is what you want and we're over budget, but you're not bringing that up to me, how do I know what we need to fix? How do I know what's going to be realistic for you? And that's where a lot of employees, a lot of sellers are uncomfortable. And you have to help them get to that point. But you telling them isn't going to allow them to get there. They have to be the ones to get themselves there, but you can guide the conversation. You can mentor them. You can develop them so that they can see that. And once they do that themselves, it makes the conversation easy because what's the worst somebody can say? No, right? I know it's cliche and I know we say that all the time. What's the worst somebody can say? They'll turn you down. Great. Okay. But you got to get to that point. And if it's a no, I just need to understand why it's a no. Because maybe it's miscommunication. Maybe we are on the same page, but we're at different sections of the page. Okay? Maybe we're in the same chapter, but we're on different pages. We got to get aligned. And that can only happen by having that conversation. And having a little bit of pushback is nothing wrong in a conversation. We're there to help guide our clients and customers. And you, as a leader, are there to help guide and develop your people. And that is part of the conversation. Because once they start seeing the results of those actions, once they start seeing that, hey, by just doing this thing, by just doing this here, when I see this, it's going to make a difference in the performance. I might close one more person, or I might be able to get an additional thing that's going to fit what we're looking at. And it's a win win for my client, for my customer, for my guest, and myself. And that's where we start to see a bigger difference in what our teams can achieve. And that's how you go from having a store that may have only been performing at top, right, with 5 sellers, go to be 17 sellers and not part time, right? More than triple the output. And you would be surprised how small little pivots in your leadership style can make that happen. So, we just talked about helping change your seller's perspective of themselves and how they can be able to really take that ownership. Grab that form, start using it, start practicing it. Next week, we're going to be talking about, or next episode, I should say, we're going to be talking about the same similar concept, but from the leadership perspective. Because as a leader, how you view your teams is detrimental to their success, more importantly, to their failure. So, guys, hit that subscribe button. Be sure to follow. Let me know what your take on this is, and I'll catch you on the next one. Once again, guys, thanks for stepping into another episode here at the Sales Manager Academy podcast.